This world, ever since that wild dimensional storm hit, absolute monstrous entities have started popping up everywhere. But honestly, that's not even the craziest part of the story. While everyone else is out there grinding their butts off and risking their lives to cultivate primordial energy, our protagonist is having a laid-back life. He's got his hands on a mysterious phone device that lets him play a game and upgrade his character. And get this, when his game character levels up and gains powers, his real-life skills and abilities get a boost too. So, buckle up and get ready to watch as our guy wrecks the competition and rises to the top, all thanks to the ultimate device he's got in the palm of his hand. In this story, a dimensional storm hit the Earth almost a decade ago, which revealed the existence of gods, fairies, ghosts, monsters, angels, demons, elves, and other legendary beings. These dimensional beings were classified into 4 categories: mortals, legends, epics, and mythicals. Their abilities and destructive powers were beyond human imagination, with humans sitting at the bottom of the mortal class. However, humans could improve their standing by cultivating their primordial energy, or by hunting dimensional beings and stealing their dimensional crystals. The latter method, though, was full of risks, as the areas where these beings were found were extremely dangerous. Once the world-building bit is over, our story starts in a classroom, where this bald teacher is calling out our protagonist, Joe Wen. When our boy doesn't respond to his call, the baldy starts yelling his head off, just like any typical teacher. I mean, his frustration is pretty understandable since this idiot is taking a nap in the middle of class, leaving the teacher wondering why the old principal thought so highly of this lazy guy. The scene flashes back to when the old principal told the bald teacher that there are only 2 types of geniuses. One is our hero of this story, and the other is everyone else. Fast forward to the present, and as soon as our boy hears the bell, he suddenly bolts out of the classroom without a word. The teacher's left scratching his head, thinking maybe the principal misjudged Joe Wen's potential. Meanwhile, our boy dashes down the corridor and bursts outside into the tennis court area. Once he is alone with his phone, he reveals to us that his life has been turned upside down ever since he got this mysterious phone, and the game inside this phone is the reason he's been zoning out in class and skipping his cultivation. All he needs to do is put a drop of his blood on the phone screen to access the hidden game app. Before diving in, he frantically looks around to make sure no one's around. Then, he grabs a needle, pokes his finger, and adds another drop of blood to create a character in the game. As soon as the phone absorbs the blood, the crimson fluid starts to morph into a character, turning into an adorably chibi little avatar that Joe Wen can play with in the game. The game's big selling point is that upgrading this avatar's abilities will also upgrade our boy in real life. No need to risk life and limb for cultivation, as he can just chill and play to improve himself. He quickly finds some monsters in the game and unleashes a flurry of punches with his avatar. He obliterates one ant with his powerful blows, and the other ant also gets a fiery barrage of punches for its trouble. As dusk starts to settle, we catch up with the bald teacher again. He shares that in the Commonwealth, it's pretty rare to find a genius who can cultivate primordial energy at just 16. But he's worried because there aren't many like Joe Wen, who sticks to bitter meditation and hones his chi without any external help. Everyone at Guida High School had high hopes for our boy, believing he'd easily snag first place in the upcoming practical test. A month ago, something happened that shook the school's confidence in Joe Wen. To see what really rattled them, we rewind almost a month and find students gathered around, buzzing with shock. Someone has challenged our boy, and what's even more surprising is that it's a girl. They're calling her crazy for taking on the school's prodigy on her very first day. As the 2 contenders face off in the middle of the basketball court, our boy asks if they know each other, but the girl doesn't bother with pleasantries and just tells him to bring it on. In typical reckless fashion, my guy charges at her, only to get hit with a gut-wrenching kick that sends him crashing to the ground like yesterday's trash, with just one kick. The way she is standing, it's clear she didn't even break a sweat while delivering that kick. The crowd is stunned to see the result of this clash, unable to believe she took him down with a single blow. Their curiosity is piqued, and everyone is asking about who this mysterious girl is, and what her name is. The bald teacher explains that ever since Joe Wen was humiliated by that girl named An Jing, he's lost all motivation. All he does now is sleep and game, and the old man is seriously worried that if this continues, he won't have a future. But honestly, the old man might be overthinking things. In our boy's case, if he keeps gaming like this, he might become unbelievably powerful. After finally defeating some monsters, Joe Wen's avatar grabs another explosion crystal, and as he absorbs the crystal, an arcane blue energy envelops him. When the blood avatar absorbs a primordial energy crystal in the game, it actually boosts the player's real-life abilities. Plus, the game lets players see stats that aren't visible in real life. A month ago, our boy's stats were pretty low, but thanks to the game, he's seen a significant boost. If he had only cultivated bitter meditation, He worries that even with years of practice, he might not have progressed as quickly as he has with the game. His only regret is that the crystals he collects in the game can't be brought into real life. If they could, he would have sold even the low-grade ones to rack up enough cash to live comfortably for the rest of his life. As the game continues, our boy finds himself up against another ant, and this one's giving him a tough time. It's a red mutated vigor ant, which is faster and stronger than the usual ones. Juwon knows he can beat it with enough time, but just as he's focused on the fight, he hears footsteps approaching. It's Fang Ruoxi, a hottie in shorts, and our boy feels a surge of anxiety after seeing her around. He doesn't want her to find out what he's playing, and if his secret gets out, he's in big trouble. But abandoning this battle now isn't an option either. He then decides to ignore her completely, trying to appear as just a tech nerd absorbed in his phone. But Fang Ruoxi calls out to him, inviting him to join her team for the final practical test of the graduation exam. As he continues his game, he asks why she wants him on her team. Fang Ruoxi explains that she wants to score high in the combat test and needs strong teammates. Our boy, however, tells her he's not as strong anymore since the title of top student was taken from him a month ago. But the girl claims that he's still the only person at Guide High School she considers worthy of being her opponent. But he tries to remind her that Anjing was the strongest. But Fang Ruoxi reveals that Anjing has already transferred schools. Ju is stunned by this news, and the girl further adds that while she's not sure where Anjing came from, it's clear she's surpassed the mortal class. Her appearance and departure were so sudden that it felt like she was just here to challenge our boy. Fang Ruoxi also mentions that she initially thought Zhou Wen had some sort of rivalry with Anjing, which might be why she challenged him. The boy thinks about it for a moment, but then claims that this is not possible because he has never met her before, let alone have beef with her. The girl then drops this topic and asks him once again whether he's joining her team. Zhou Wen, seeing the opportunity, agrees, saying he's fine with benefiting from her skills and leadership. Fang Ruoxi decides it's settled and explains that she's already found 2 other teammates. Starting today, all team members, including our boy, will train together every afternoon. With that, she quietly leaves, and he finally defeats the red ant. He rushes to grab the dimensional energy crystal, but as soon as he does, a bunch of ants swarm him. But our boy quickly ends the game and plans to check out the new crystal later. Suddenly he feels a sense of unease. His phone and his body start radiating a crimson energy, and he's overwhelmed by an intense feeling. It looks like the crystal might be causing this reaction. From what he knows, the Vigor Ant crystal seems to be a primordial energy skill crystal from the legends, but he's unsure what skill it might grant. Without wasting any time, he drops a bit of blood on his phone and activates the game to see what's happening. As soon as he looks into it, he sees that he has unlocked a new primordial energy skill. Later, all 4 members of the group come together, and Fang Ruoxi introduces Zhou Wen as their 4th teammate to the other 2 members. The 2 guys raise their eyebrows, noting that while they know about Zhou Wen's skills, he hasn't been training for over a month, so they're unsure if he can perform at his previous level. One of the guys, who has blonde hair, mentions that their main goal is to secure first place in Guide City's college entrance combat test. He expresses concern that our boy might not be the best candidate and suggests inviting another guy named Zheng Yi instead. Well, our boy can understand their hesitation to take him in. You see, the college entrance combat test is a big deal. It can significantly impact the latter part of someone's life, affecting everything from getting into prestigious universities to job hunting and even determining their place in society's top echelons. Plus, having strong teammates is crucial for safety, so it makes sense they'd want to ensure they have the best possible team. Rue tries to convince the group that while Zheng Yi might be a strong candidate, she still believes Zhou is their best option. The blonde guy then proposes a simple test to measure their strengths if our boy does not mind. Rue curiously asks what kind of test they're talking about. The blonde guy proudly explains that since he himself is the weakest among the 3 of them, Zhou Wen will spar with him. If our boy wins, he proves he's qualified to join the team. If he loses, he's out. Our boy raises a concern about the risks of combat and the potential for injury, suggesting that no one benefits from getting hurt. But the blonde guy points out that the school's strength measuring devices might give numbers, but those are meaningless. They'll settle this with a straightforward fight, and the one who concedes loses. Hearing this, Rue thinks about how Tian's combat skills stack up against Zhou Wen's, and she is quite concerned for our boy. You see, our boy hasn't used any dimensional crystals to boost his cultivation, and his family is likely poor, so he might not have any key fighting skills at all. Despite her concerns, she's curious to see how he will handle the situation. Meanwhile, Zhou Wen is considering using machines to gauge their strengths, but Tian scoffs, asking if he's afraid. Our boy just scratches his head, secretly worried that he might hurt them with a single punch. In the end, they decide to use the machines. Tian steps up first and punches the machine with all his might. As everyone watches in anticipation, the machine displays a strength score of 7 points. Joe reflects on how the number on the machine isn't exactly the same as the values shown in the game, but they're quite close. Before he started the game, he had similar power. Tien invites our boy to take his turn with the strength measuring machine. When my guy delivers his strike, the impact creates a loud noise that echoes throughout the school. The baldy teacher, who happens to be walking down the corridor, hears the noise and wonders aloud who's using the testing machine when everyone should be resting. So, he curiously heads to the machine room, and as he opens the door quietly, he catches sight of Joe and the others. He is left scratching his head if our boy is the one who just threw that punch. And yep, it's definitely him. The room goes silent as everyone watches in awe when the machine displays a strength score of 10. Even the old man, who is secretly observing, is completely stunned. The old man starts to reconsider, and wonders if Joe hasn't been slacking off after all. Perhaps he's been practicing so intensely that he's only had time to nap in class. He even begins to think that the old principal's judgment about Joe might actually have been spot on. Meanwhile, Rue is puzzled and impressed by our boy's choice to use the most challenging method to deliver strength, and yet he still scores 10 points without even using any chi fighting skills. Tien is visibly agitated by this, and with his frustration boiling over, he swallows his pride and informs our boy that he's qualified. He then decides to make one last punch with what's left of his dignity. He clenches his fist, which crackles with thunder, and delivers a devastating blow to the machine. This time, the machine shows a strength score of 11. The punch leaves Tien completely exhausted, and our boy gives him a thumbs up for his effort. However, Joe appears to be curious about something. Tien tells him to snap out of it and warns him to either score higher than 11 or face the disgrace of losing. Our boy then asks his friends if the school will make him pay for any damage if he breaks the machine. Blondie confidently reassures him that he'll cover the cost if the machine gets broken. With that in mind, my guy begins to smile, and a yellow energy starts to surround his body as he prepares for his punch. Blondie is pretty sure Joe is just bragging. After all, this machine is meant for serious strength testing and can go up to 20 points. Hardly anyone at the school could hit that mark. But with his power cranked up, my guy lets loose with a punch flowing with chi, and Rue is shocked to see he's using chi fighting skills. The punch is so intense that the machine starts breaking down, its circuits frying from the sheer power. Everyone watching is stunned as he takes down the machine like it's nothing. The baldy is completely baffled to see this. He is pretty sure that this machine can easily handle strength up to 20 points, and to wreck it like that, you'd need a rank 8 or 9 key fighting skill. At that moment, the baldy's bald head recalls the principal's words about Joe being the ultimate genius, and he has finally started to see why the principal made such a bold statement about our boy. Even Rue has always known our boy is strong, but seeing it in action was a real eye-opener for her. As the evening sets in, our boy takes a leisurely stroll down a quiet city path. While walking, he can't help but remember his fight with Enjing. It baffles him why someone at her legendary level would bother challenging someone still in the Mortal League. He's pretty sure he's never left Guida Province before, so he has no clue when he might have offended her. Out of the blue, his phone rings. It's his dad, asking if he'll be coming to his wedding. The son curiously asks who the lucky bride is. His playboy father quickly sends a photo of a woman with some impressive pair of hooters and asks if his son likes his future stepmother. Well, that's one way to spice up a father-son chat. Anyway, our boy asks when and where the wedding's happening, and his dad casually mentions it'll be in about a week. That's when our boy reminds his father that his college entrance exam happens to be next week, so he can't attend the wedding even though he really wants to. He then asks his dad if there's an iron cookie box in the closet room. His father, clueless as usual, says he has no idea. Joe tells him it's a square iron cookie box about 10 inches long, with a cartoon bear pattern on it. His dad then explains that it's the box of bear cookies he used to eat, but that brand isn't sold anymore. He is really curious about Joe's sudden interest in that box, so he asks why he's bringing it up. Our boy reveals there's a phone inside that cookie box and asks if his dad put it there. His father asks if the phone has a white metal shell, a black screen, no keys, and is about 7 or 8 inches long. When the son confirms, his dad says it belongs to his grandpa. Our guy is totally stunned and asks how his grandpa ended up with the phone. His dad then reveals a wild story about our boy's grandpa. Basically, his grandpa worked as a carpenter during the reconstruction of ancient Guide City. They worked on a ton of old-style wooden buildings. Grandpa was there for over a year, and one night, while a few workers were burning the midnight oil, they discovered an ancient dry well on the construction site. Something was shimmering inside, and they thought they'd hit the jackpot with some kind of treasure. There was a box inside the well, and when they pulled out that old wooden box from the well, the light was seeping through the gaps, and inside the box, there was a phone. The screen was lit up at first, but it went dark as soon as they took it out. The phone had no keys or charging port, looking like it was completely dead. Everyone was pretty bummed when they found the broken phone. They figured it was just some prank and quickly moved on. So Grandpa ended up tossing it into his toolkit. His dad further adds that the phone couldn't be turned on, and when he was younger, he even tried to sell it at a repair shop to get some cigarettes. The shop owner said it was worthless, so he just dumped it into that cookie box. Now he's wondering if Joe wants to sell it too. Inside, Joe's pretty relieved his dad never managed to sell it. Otherwise, he'd never have gotten his hands on this bad boy. He asks his dad if the phone was ever turned on. His dad says definitely not and mentions it's been sitting unused for decades. His dad wraps up the call, saying he's got other stuff to do. He's already given the wedding info, so it's up to Joe if he wants to come or not. Once the call wraps up, Joe reflects on how his real combat test will be held in Ancient Guide City. He decides it might be worth checking out the old well for any clues or leads. He heads back home and starts reworking his game plan. Days pass, and he falls into a routine, napping through class and snoozing under a tree while everyone else trains, all the while gaming away. Several days later, in the school corridor, two students are sprinting down the hall. A guy in glasses crashes into another guy dressed like he's from some aristocratic society. The glasses guy hits the ground hard from the impact, but the blonde guy barely flinches. He just stands there, giving off a weirdly creepy vibe. The blondie begins to walk away with his entourage, and the people behind whisper among themselves about how intimidating this guy looks. The next scene takes us outside, where we meet Tien again. He announces he's quitting the group because a friend has already invited him to another team. With that, he walks off, leaving our boy wondering if Roxy has a backup plan since the test is right around the corner, and finding a new teammate now is nearly impossible. He calls out to his other teammate, Li Ju, and asks if he knows Tien left the team. Li Ju drops another bomb. He can't team up with our boy either, and asks not to be questioned about why he's quitting. Finally, we meet Roxy, who looks sad and dejected. It's clear why she's upset. Her team's numbers have dwindled. When she spots our boy, she quickly apologizes, but he tells her not to stress. He reveals that he should be the one apologizing because he's the reason everyone is leaving. Apparently there are people out there gunning for him, which is why his teammates left the group. She then points out that she has no clue who our boy has offended, but she's sure that whoever it is holds a lot of power, so he should be careful. He agrees, and they part ways. His mind is racing about the upcoming test, and he's stressed about finding trustworthy teammates in time. Heck, even his most trusted friend Roxy does not want to team up with him anymore, given all the danger he is attracting. As he walks away, the bald teacher calls out to him. Once Joe meets with him, the teacher reveals that Inspector Ang is from the military, and his full name is Ang Tianzuo. He asks if Joe knows him, and our boy confirms he doesn't. The old man finds it odd because if Joe doesn't know him, why would such a high-ranking military officer criticize a high school student by name during his inspection in Guide City? Our boy then asks who this man really is, so the bald teacher breaks it down. The Earth Federation is divided into 4 regions: East, South, West, and North. Inspector Ang is young but comes from a famous family. At just over 20, he's already a senior officer in the East Region military, making him a remarkable figure. The boy then asks if Inspector Ang is trying to target him. The teacher says he can't be sure, but Ang Tianzuo did mention that our boy wasn't a good student, and everyone agreed with him, especially those wanting to please Inspector Ang. Our guy gets furious and asks if a senior officer like Ang doesn't realize how his words could ruin a high school student's life. He then asks if Ang is related to An Jing, the woman he fought a month ago. The Baldy says there's a chance, but they shouldn't jump to conclusions. Right now, the most important thing is to find our boy a team so he can sign up for the test. The deadline is the day after tomorrow, so there's no time to lose. His teammates can't be just any ordinary students. The old man reveals that there's a student named Li Xuan in their school. If this student accepts our boy and his team, Baldy believes no one will make things difficult for him. However, there's a condition. Our boy has to do his best to help Li Xuan get a good score, and Li Xuan must have the highest score among the 4 team members. The boy asks if the old man is implying he should give his points to this newcomer, to which the old man agrees, stating that this is his only chance to participate in the match. The boy agrees to the terms and tells the old man to contact Li Xuan for him. After that meeting, Joe then calls his father, asking about Inspector Ang Tianzuo and if he knows him. That's when his father drops a bombshell. Ang Tianzuo is actually our boy's brother. This news hits our boy like a thunderbolt out of the blue. His father explains that Tianzuo is the son of his stepmother. Once his father marries her, Tianzuo will be officially his brother. And as if that wasn't enough, his father also reveals that our boy has a sister named An Jing. It suddenly clicked to our boy why that girl, An Jing, appeared out of nowhere and challenged him in front of the entire school. It was probably just to tarnish his reputation. He quickly asks his dad if those two actually like their new father. In response, the dad claims that they both respect him a lot. After ending the call, the only thing on Joe's mind is why these siblings are trying to mess with him. He wonders if they disapprove of the marriage between his father and their mother. He reflects on how Tianzuo flaunted his authority, tried to block him from joining the exam, and Anjing defeated him with a single hit, all because he's just way too weak to stand against them. Nonetheless, he heads back to his messy, stinky apartment and dives into his game, figuring leveling up is the best way to tackle these problems. After taking down a mutated ant, he gets a special drop, a symbiotic egg. Zhu gets excited to see this, because he knows it's rare for someone at the mortal level to get a symbiotic pet, since most people get theirs at the legendary level. As soon as his blood avatar tries to grab the egg, it starts to crack and hits him right in the chest. Suddenly a voice echoes in his head, calling him master, and pledging loyalty, even saying it would die for him. He feels this intense pain coursing through him, and he quickly sits back on his bed with his head aching like hell. But then, he notices a new tattoo on his hand, and once he checks his mobile phone, he sees he's now got a pet, known as a mutated immense strength ant. This pet can also be used in its symbiotic form as a fist weapon. Excitedly, he covers the windows with curtains for some privacy, and decides to summon his new pet, though he's not quite sure how to go about it. He starts thinking about his pet, and as he concentrates, his hand begins to gather energy. A glove-like weapon starts to form above his hand. It turns out this glove is the symbiotic form of his pet and is said to enhance the user's abilities. He then decides to summon the mutated immense strength ant itself. As the glove dissolves into mist, the crimson mist begins to shape into the ant. It materializes into a furious but surprisingly cute creature. Our boy is somewhat scared to see this, and not gonna lie, this pet is much larger than I had expected it to be. In any case, our boy decides he'll try riding it some other time, maybe once he's outside. The next day arrives, and we see the bald teacher taking our boy to meet Li Xuan. The old man reveals that Li Xuan is somewhat pretentious, but assures him that he's not a bad guy. Since they're only working with him for the test, there's nothing to worry about. Their car zooms down the highway, eventually reaching a place called the Honorable Royal Health Club. Inside, a servant greets the old man, who tells her they're looking for the second son of the Li family. Hearing this, the servant quickly shows them the way inside. As they enter, it becomes clear the old man wasn't kidding about Li Xuan being pretentious. The place is majestic, and the man in question is surrounded by a bunch of girls, looking like a hip-hop rapper who thinks he's on top of the world after earning a few $100,000. Xuan quickly tells Baldy to have a seat and a drink, but the old man refuses and gets straight to the point. He introduces our boy right away, assuring Xuan that this kid is very capable and can easily help him achieve a good score in the exam. Xuan waves off the old man's pitch, saying he trusts Baldy and will take our boy as his teammate for his sake. With that settled, the old man decides to leave, telling both of them to discuss the test details. Before leaving, the old man turns to our boy and tells him to get familiar with Li Xuan and his team because the test is right around the corner. With that, the old man leaves, and Xuan turns to Joe, claiming he's heard about him and that he's apparently the best genius in Guida High School. Our boy just shrugs it off as a rumor and tells him not to take it seriously. Li Xuan agrees, and points out that it's impossible to have geniuses in a small province like this one. He then reminds our boy that if he were a genius, he wouldn't have been defeated by Anjing with one move. He then tells Joe that he doesn't have to participate in any teamwork training. All he needs to do is follow commands and not cause any trouble. He then offers Joe a challenge. If he can finish an entire bottle of alcohol in one go, he'll let Joe choose any girl he desires from the club. Joe just keeps his eyes glued to his mobile, barely looking up, and says he doesn't drink. It seems this playboy isn't too thrilled with Joe's attitude and starts wondering if Baldy, who begged him to take on this good-for-nothing dude, was worth it. To mess with Joe, Li Xuan tells one of the girls to entertain our boy. The girl calls Xuan a naughty boy for being so mischievous, then starts hovering around Joe. She tries to grab his attention with her big hooters and somewhat average looks, but Joe doesn't take his eyes off his device. As she gets physical and tries to touch him, it becomes clear that our boy is way too busy to deal with this silver-winged mosquito monster. He's doing his best to stay focused, but the woman is persistent and starts to get on his nerves. As she bothers him and forces him to look at her, his game avatar finds itself in trouble. Just before he's about to lose the game, he flings the annoying woman away like a true Gigachad and quickly maneuvers his avatar out of danger. The playboy nearly chokes on his drink, stunned that our boy literally tossed the woman aside just to save his game. Everyone bursts into laughter at the absurdity of it all. It looks like our boy has finally lost his game and isn't feeling too great about it. On the other hand, it seems like Xuan is starting to take a liking to our boy. As night falls, the room is littered with empty bottles and shot glasses. Li Xuan is sound asleep in his bed with his girl, but as we take a closer look, it looks like he is still awake. Meanwhile, Joe is still deeply engrossed in his game, determined to beat the silver-winged mosquito. Despite his efforts, he keeps losing to the pesky bug, and his avatar keeps losing its head to the monster. After playing through the night, all his attempts have ended in failure. The mosquito isn't quite at the legendary level, so it should be possible to take it down. Joe thinks that if he can land a rank 9 power punch, he could really hurt it. But since the punch takes forever to execute, he's wondering if he can mix it with some high-speed move. Since his game character is based on him, Joe figures that if he improves his real-life power punch, the game character will sync up with those gains. He starts practicing his punch, hoping to boost his in-game performance. As Joe trains, Li Xuan sneaks a curious look at him, intrigued by his relentless dedication. He has no clue what our boy is practicing, and the whole 1-inch punch thing sounds like gibberish to him. He shrugs it off, thinking he might have some special skills, but seeing nothing impressive about his moves, he decides to go back to sleep. The college entrance exam finally arrives, and our boy diligently fills out his answer sheet, and we see Li Xuan also taking the exam. Once the exam is over and everyone spills out, it's clear that it was a pretty grueling exam, as everyone looks pretty dejected. A few days later, a bus full of students zooms down the highway, heading towards the ancient Guida city. Decades ago, when the dimensional storm hit, a dimensional crack opened up in the city, transforming it into a realm with all sorts of mutated animals and plants. Troops are stationed in the city, and no one is allowed to enter without a pass, and the real combat test is about to begin in this creepy, transformed city. Once the bus stops and the students get out, Joe notices a lot of soldiers closely watching everything. While he waits for his team members, he looks around and reads a large sign that says, Guida Province. Right next to the sign, there's a small palm-like emblem embedded in the wall that piques his curiosity. Suddenly his phone rings. He's pretty sure it's his dad calling, so he pulls out his phone. To his surprise, it's the mysterious phone he uses to play the game. This phone has never made or received calls before and has never vibrated, so it's strange that it's ringing now. What is even more surprising is that there's a camera app activated. He opens the app but isn't sure what to do with it. Wondering if he's supposed to take selfies, he decided to take pictures of the beautiful landscape before him. The camera on the mysterious phone isn't cooperating, and as he fumbles with it, he accidentally points it towards the palm-like emblem near the Guida Province sign. The phone instantly detects the emblem and, when he snaps a photo, a new app appears on the screen. Well, it seems like it's an app for entering a dungeon in the game. Since he is free for now, he decides to give it a go. And after dropping a bit of blood, his game avatar materializes, and he finds himself navigating through what seems like the Guida city in the game. As he moves forward, he spots a creature from another universe, an adorable skeleton soldier. The little guy charges at him with a big weapon, and our boy is in for an unexpected battle. Joe dodges the skeleton soldier's clumsy attacks with ease, and he's barely breaking a sweat. The skeleton's neither quick nor strong, making it a breeze compared to the ants he usually deals with. His avatar then balls up its fist, and shatters the poor zombie into pieces with its devastating punch. The skeleton's crystal drops quickly, and Joe is pleasantly surprised to find a skill crystal right after his very first kill. He hits the absorb button, and the crystal's power starts flowing into him. It's not as painful as he'd expected, much smoother than his previous experiences with skill absorption. The system then pops up, announcing that he's acquired the Skeleton Palm skill with a key consumption of just 1 point. Looks like Joe's off to a solid start. But he does not seem too thrilled though, because he remembers that skeleton soldiers are mostly low level and their skills are basic, consuming minimal chi. Still, he decides to push on and see what his new skill can really do. He quickly summons his mutated immense strength ant with a burst of light and hops onto its back. The ant charges through the ancient city, its speed impressive as it plows deeper into the area, and shortly after, he encounters more skeleton zombies. He slices through them effortlessly, treating them like mere practice dummies. He is sure that each kill is going to rack up more crystals, so he is enjoying the thrill of the hunt. After a while, our boy's excitement dwindles as he realizes he hasn't gained anything, despite having taken down a ton of skeleton soldiers. As he ventures further into the dungeon, he encounters something unexpected. A bunch of little skeleton zombies guarding the final boss. A much larger skeleton seated atop a horse. The skeleton knight wastes no time, moving with incredible speed and landing a solid hit that pierces through Joe's avatar, killing him instantly. When the game ends, he looks back at the emblem near the signboard and is certain that beyond that door, Guida Province holds many more mysteries. Suddenly someone appears behind him. As soon as he turns around, he sees his stepsister, who, as usual, doesn't seem particularly thrilled to see him. Shortly after, we see Joe holding a pen drive, and we are not sure how he got this little thing. The scene then flashes back to when his stepsister had swung her fist at him, stopping just before his face. She told him that their father had asked her to deliver something to him and quickly handed over the pen drive. As she leaves, she wonders aloud how their father is wasting his efforts on someone like Joe, calling him a loser and saying he'll never be a true member of the Ang family, because no one in her family is as useless and weak as he is. Our boy is kinda puzzled about when he became a member of her family. Just as he's lost in thought, he hears a call from Xuan. As he turns around, he sees Xuan finally arriving with the other 2 team members. My guy is dressed so casually that he looks like he's here for a beach party rather than a serious exam. The playboy then puts a hand on Joe's shoulder and tells him not to worry about a thing, as his goons will handle everything. The 2 lackeys quickly agree, with one of them even boasting that he could single-handedly take down all of Guida province for his boss. Xuan doesn't seem too impressed with his lackey's overconfidence. The other one, wearing a black hat, steps forward and promises that they'll do their best and nothing will go wrong. Seeing this, Joe quickly realizes that Xuan is intentionally keeping himself and our boy out of the action, planning to use these 2 goons as pawns. The time for the test finally arrives, and a soldier tells everyone to report to the invigilator. That's when we catch sight of Ruoxi, and our boy spots her too. He flashes a pleasant smile and gives her a thumbs up, which seems to relieve her a bit, seeing that Joe has finally managed to join a team. The city gates begin to crack open, emitting a bright blue energy that forms some kind of portal. A guy in glasses, probably the invigilator, steps up and explains the rules. Points will be calculated based on the number of crystals collected by killing skeleton soldiers, and the number of crystals will also determine their ranking. With that, he tells everyone to step forward and enter the gate. Joe confidently walks toward the portal, and as soon as he steps through, he finds himself on the other side along with other students, ready to take on whatever challenges come his way. Skeleton monsters start popping up, and the students dive at them like they're the last roll of toilet paper in a Walmart during a sale. The skeletons clatter forward, their bones making hilarious rattling noises. Black Hat Dude takes down a skeleton with a single swing, slicing through its neck like it's made of butter. Meanwhile, overconfident guy grabs another skeleton's hand and gives it a brutal knee smash, turning it into bone confetti. Well, it seems like our boy doesn't need to worry about anything, since these guys are actually quite a powerhouse team. He is happy that this gives him the perfect excuse to check something on his phone he's been curious about for a while. Xuan, however, is super confused. He's watching Joe play on his phone and starts to wonder if this guy is actually a genius or if it's just a load of hot air. Meanwhile, whatever Joe was trying to confirm, his hunch was right on the money. Apparently, he was looking into the layout of the game, and not just the city gate, even the layout of the buildings is identical to the dungeon in the game. This makes him curious if every dungeon is based on a real place inside the game. As soon as he realizes this, his face goes pale as if he's about to crap his pants.